Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're taking something that, let's be honest, usually puts us right to sleep. Those totally tedious, ancient architectural reading assignments in the Bible, and we're going to transform them into what they actually are, which is a thrilling, high-stakes map of the cosmos. We're going to completely rethink the biblical narrative by looking at the true nature of sacred space. I mean, let's be real for a second. If you've ever tried to power through the ancient texts, especially the back half of the book of Exodus, or maybe the historical records of Kings and Chronicles, you've almost certainly hit a wall. It's just chapter after chapter obsessing over the exact measurements of curtains, cubits, and cultic hardware. And you can't help but ask, why? Why did ancient writers spend so much time on this? It just feels like a dry, boring interruption to the story. But we really need to flip the script here. Because in the ancient mind, a sanctuary was never just a building. It wasn't about interior design. It was actually a massive, bold claim about the moral architecture of reality itself. So here's our roadmap for unpacking this mystery. 1. The mystery of sacred space. 2. Rebuilding the Garden of Eden. 3. The rival mountain of rebellion. 4. A miniature model of reality. And 5. The ultimate relocation. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Mystery of Sacred Space, a map of the cosmos.
Okay, we really need a huge paradigm shift for our modern minds to grasp what's going on here. You see, to ancient Israelites, sacred space was a mythic reality. Now, hold on, mythic doesn't mean fake or fairy tale. It means using profound symbolic and visual metaphors to explain deep, fundamental theological truths. Look at this definition. Sacred space is a localized intersection of heaven and earth. It's marked by a divine presence, a very distinct separation from the mundane, and the fact that God possesses it. This wasn't just a metaphor to them. It was a literal beachhead where the living creator could actually be encountered by human beings.
Section 2. Rebuilding the Garden of Eden, the original blueprint.
So where did all of this start? Well, the very first sacred space wasn't a building at all. It was a lush, well-watered garden situated on a cosmic mountain. And this table illustrates something absolutely brilliant. Every single piece of cultic hardware in the tabernacle and the temple was actually a stylized reinstantiation of Eden. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. The menorah, with those almond-shaped cups and blossoms, that wasn't just a lamp, it was the tree of life. The golden cherubim hovering over the ark were the very same guardians stationed at the edge of the garden. That giant bronze basin in the temple courtyard, called the Molten Sea, that represented the cosmic waters of creation. And think about this, because humanity was expelled eastward from Eden, approaching the presence of God in the sanctuary required moving westward. It was a literal reversal of the exile.
Now, all of this ties into a totally crucial concept from the ancient Near East, the cosmic mountain. These are the core characteristics of this mountain. It was the intersection of heaven and earth, the literal seat of divine government, the source of life-giving waters, and, like we just saw, a lush garden. Eden was the very first iteration of this mountain. Mount Sinai, where God met Moses in fire, was another. And finally, Mount Zion, where the temple was built, became the permanent earthly throne room for the Creator. But, a throne room implies a kingdom, and kingdoms, well, they have enemies.
Section 3. The rival mountain of rebellion. The shadows of Bashan.
Because here's the thing, God's dwelling is defined just as much by what it contests as by what it contains. Check out the contrast between these two mountains. On one side, we have Mount Zion. Honestly, geographically speaking, it's a pretty low, visually unimpressive hill. Yet this is the one chosen as the holy mountain, the seat of God's government. On the exact opposite side, towering way up in the north in the region of Bashan, is Mount Hermon. It has these massive, majestic, snow-capped peaks. In ancient traditions, Hermon was the rival mountain. It was seen as the gateway to the underworld and the exact staging ground where rebellious heavenly beings were said to have descended. It was literally the counterfeit headquarters of cosmic rebellion. So the crucial takeaway here is this. The temple on Mount Zion isn't just some peaceful little house of prayer sitting on a nice piece of real estate. No way. It is a beachhead planted squarely in contested territory. By choosing the small, weak hill of Zion over the majestic peaks of Hermon, the Creator is launching a direct, polemical attack on the rival mountain and the dark powers of the underworld. It is a bold promise that the mountain of rebellion is going down.
Section 4. A miniature model of reality. Creation and the temple. Okay, so how does this epic cosmic war translate into actual architecture? Well, the construction of the tabernacle and temple is actually a mirror image of the creation of the universe itself. Just look at this number, 7. The parallels in the ancient texts are completely shocking once you finally see them. Just as the creation of the cosmos took 7 days, culminating in divine rest, Solomon's temple took exactly 7 years to build. It was dedicated during a 7-day festival in the 7th month, and the dedication prayer was structured around exactly 7 petitions. This isn't a coincidence. It's an unmistakable mathematical signal. Building the temple is reenacting the building of the world. And you can literally see this cosmic map in the architecture. The sanctuary acts as a scale model of the cosmos. The innermost room, the Holy of Holies, represents the invisible realm of God, or heaven. The veil separating the rooms, that corresponds to the firmament dividing heaven and earth. The outer holy place is an area of mediated holiness, and the big open courtyard represents the inhabited world, or earth. When you stepped into the temple precinct, you were quite literally stepping into a miniature universe. And this cosmic map perfectly explains the spatial logic of ancient sacrifice, particularly the Day of Atonement. Modern readers almost always think of ancient sacrifices purely as transactions for personal guilt, but the primary goal was actually spatial. Because humans are impure, their presence in this miniature cosmos contaminates the sacred space over time. So the Day of Atonement was this highly dramatic ritual to purge the cosmic meeting place. It was like a cosmic deep cleaning, cleansing the space so mortal creatures wouldn't be completely consumed by the intense holiness of the Creator's pure presence. It kept the vital connection between heaven and earth open. Which leaves us to Section 5, the ultimate relocation, from masonry to persons. Here's the wild part, though. This entire system of wood, fabric, and stone, it was never meant to be permanent. Notice how sacred space evolves across this timeline. It's totally a moving target. It starts off highly localized in Eden. After the exile, it becomes a portable tabernacle. Then it settles into a permanent temple. But then it leaps entirely out of architecture. It moves into the incarnate Lord and his believers, ultimately expanding to encompass the entire New Jerusalem. Let's look a little closer at those last 2 steps, because this is where it gets really good. The New Testament writings make an absolutely radical claim: the cosmic mountain relocated into a person. The Gospel of John says, "The Word became flesh and tabernacled among us." Jesus literally becomes the new sacred space. And fascinatingly, he purposely journeys right to the foot of Mount Hermon. Remember that rival mountain of rebellion we talked about earlier? He goes right to its base to announce the building of his new community and to declare that the gates of the underworld will finally be defeated. And honestly, this is exactly where you and I enter the picture. Because believers are united to this incarnate Lord, the community itself becomes the new sanctuary. Look at all this architectural language used to describe people: a foundation of apostles, Christ as the cornerstone, believers as living stones, built into a spiritual house. The actual presence of God comes to rest inside people. This makes a physical brick-and-mortar temple completely obsolete. Going back to a building now would be reversing the entire cosmic trajectory. All of this sets up the ultimate paradox found at the very end of the biblical narrative. In the book of Revelation, the text describes this breathtaking final vision of the New Jerusalem, which is essentially the globalization of Eden. But look at this radical quote from the text. There is absolutely no temple in it. Why? Because the presence of God fills everything. The entire world has become sacred space. That little localized bubble of Eden has finally expanded to cover the whole earth. So I want to leave you with this to chew on. What if the deepest meaning of the temple was never about masonry, but about a cosmic restoration of humanity? When you realize that those endless, dry lists of ancient architectural measurements were actually mapping out a story of God's relentless pursuit to dwell with us, moving from a garden to a tent to a stone house and finally into the human heart, man, it just changes everything. It's an incredible destiny for the world, mapped out in the absolute most unexpected of places. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.